I am Evelyn Gibson. At 71, I am still the most beautiful woman in the room. Not because I say so, but because no one else dares to say otherwise. But this morning, when I looked in the mirror, I saw a small crack. A crack named Monique Parker, my niece since birth, and the only person who would dare to dream of replacing me. The mirror doesn't lie to me. It never has. 5,000 square feet of polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, and every surface in this penthouse reflects the same truth. Evelyn Gibson is eternal. 71 years on this earth. No husband, no children, just flashbulbs and standing ovations. Just my name embroidered on the backs of Hollywood stars and first ladies. Just the weight of being a legend. I built this kingdom with silk and thread and an iron will that made grown men weep in boardrooms. When I was 23, Vogue told me I was too black, too bold, too much, so I became more. I became everything they said I couldn't be, and I made them beg to be part of my world. And now, after 15 years of designing alone, of walking that Met Gala staircase as a solo act, I've done something I swore I'd never do. I've agreed to share. The 2026 Met Gala, my final collection, Evelyn and Monique. The fashion world exploded when I made the announcement 3 weeks ago. Every blog, every magazine, every television screen showed the same image, me and Monique, side by side at the press conference, her hand resting on mine like we were passing a torch. She wore one of my designs from 1987, cream silk with gold threading, because Monique is smart enough to know that everything she touches, I touched first. The cameras loved it. 2 generations of Gibson blood, the queen and her heir, beauty that transcends age. They wrote headlines like, "A legacy preserved and the Gibson dynasty begins." Only I saw what they didn't. The way her smile tightened when they asked if she was nervous to stand next to me. The way her publicist, some 26-year-old with fresh veneers and too much confidence, whispered in her ear between questions. The way Monique's eyes lingered on my chair, my microphone, my spotlight. She thinks I'm fading. She thinks 71 means finished. Let me tell you about Monique Parker. She came into my world when she was 3 days old, a tiny thing wrapped in a hospital blanket, my sister Lorraine's only child. Lorraine died when Monique was 7, breast cancer. 42 years old. I paid for the funeral, the private school, the apartment near Columbia University. I opened doors that would have stayed locked forever. Not because I'm kind, but because Lorraine was the only person who ever loved me without wanting something in return. Monique grew up in my shadow and seemed grateful for the shade. She studied at Parsons because I made a phone call. She worked as my assistant for 6 years, bringing me coffee, pinning hems, learning every secret of how I turned fabric into power. She was good. Not great, but good enough to know the difference. 3 years ago, I let her design a capsule collection under my label. It sold well. The critics called it fresh and contemporary, code words for not Evelyn. I smiled through the reviews and reminded myself that loyalty mattered more than talent. But this morning, everything changed. I woke at 5 a.m., same as I have for 50 years. The city was still dark, just the first whisper of dawn touching the park below. I made my espresso, French roast, 2 sugars. I opened my laptop to review the sketches for the Met Gala collection. 71 dresses, one for each year of my life. Each one a chapter, a battle won, a moment of triumph. That's when I saw the email, forwarded by mistake from Monique's publicist to my business manager, who'd accidentally copied me on the reply chain. Subject line, timeline for transition post-gala. I read it 3 times, then I read it again. The email laid it out like a military operation. How Monique would leverage the Met Gala coverage to announce her taking the helm of the Evelyn Gibson brand. How I would step back into an emeritus role, their words, not mine, to focus on my health and legacy. There were talking points prepared. quotes ready for press releases. A whole narrative about me choosing to retire, to pass the torch to new visionary leadership. They'd even drafted my goodbye speech. The coffee cup in my hand began to shake. Not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. I sat there as the sun came up, painting my penthouse in shades of gold and blood orange, and I understood something profound. Monique didn't just want my brand. She wanted my erasure. She wanted to be the story, and I would become the footnote, the aging designer who'd gracefully stepped aside. Graceful. As if I've ever done anything gracefully in my life. I walked to my closet, past 71 years of fabric and memory, and I pulled out the dress I wore to my first Met Gala in 1979. Midnight blue velvet, hand-beaded, the waist still as small as the day I'd made it. I held it against my body in the mirror. Monique thinks she knows me. She thinks she learned everything in those 6 years of fetching my scissors and nodding at my critiques. But she never learned the most important lesson. I didn't survive this long by sharing. The Met Gala is in 42 days. 42 days until the world watches us walk that red carpet together. Aunt and niece, legend and heir. Monique has no idea what's coming, but she will. They all will. Because I'm about to remind everyone why there's only one Evelyn Gibson, and why there will only ever be one. The first sign appeared on a Tuesday morning, exactly 37 days before the Met Gala. I was in my private atelier on the 3rd floor of my Manhattan studio, the space where every important creation of my career had been born. 1,700 square feet of pure white walls, north-facing windows, cutting tables that had witnessed 5 decades of my vision becoming reality. This room had always been sacred, invitation only. Even when Monique worked as my assistant, she entered only when summoned. But that Tuesday, I arrived early and found her already there, 6:30 in the morning. She was standing in the center of the room with a laser measuring device, the kind architects use, pointing it at the walls and muttering numbers into her phone. She didn't hear me enter. I watched her for 90 seconds, silent in the doorway. She measured the distance from the windows to my main cutting table. She measured the ceiling height. She photographed the storage system where I kept my vintage fabric collection, pieces I'd gathered from Paris and Milan and Lagos over 50 years. She opened drawers. She tested the light switches. She was cataloging, memorizing, claiming. When she finally turned and saw me, her face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, guilt, then that smile, the one she'd perfected in front of cameras. "Aunt Evelyn, I didn't know you'd be here so early. I was just getting familiar with the space before we start the final production phase, so I can be more helpful." I said nothing. I walked to my cutting table, set down my coffee, and began reviewing the sketches for dresses 40 through 45. After a moment, she left. But I'd seen enough. A queen doesn't panic when she spots the knife. She watches to see how sharp it is. The second sign came 3 days later. My publicist, Margaret Chen, who'd handled my image for 22 years, called me at noon. Her voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news to someone powerful. "Evelyn, I need to run something by you. The Vogue profile that's running next month, the big cover story about the Met Gala collection. They just sent over the proposed headline and deck copy. And the headline is Evelyn Gibson and her protégée Monique Parker, a legacy transformed. The deck reads, "As the legendary designer prepares to pass the torch, a new generation steps into the spotlight." I felt my jaw tighten. I approved no such language. I know. That's why I'm calling. It seems Monique's team has been in direct contact with the Vogue editors, suggesting this angle. They're positioning it as a succession story. Tell them to change it. Tell them Monique is a collaborator on this single collection, nothing more. I've tried. They're saying Monique's publicist has emails from you approving this narrative. I sent no such emails. I believe you. but someone with access to your accounts did. I ended the call and sat very still in my office chair, looking out at the gray March sky over Manhattan. Monique had my email password. I'd given it to her 2 years ago when she was helping coordinate my schedule. I'd never changed it. Stupid. Sloppy. The kind of mistake I would have destroyed someone else for making. But instead of rage, I felt something else rising in my chest. Something I hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten the taste of it. Excitement. The third sign came at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, 28 days before the Met Gala. I don't sleep well anymore. Age does that. Steals your rest the same way it tries to steal your relevance. I was awake in my bedroom, reading fabrication reports, when I heard a voice in the penthouse. Monique had a key. I'd given it to her years ago for emergencies. She sometimes stayed in the guest room when we worked late on projects. I heard her pacing in the hallway, her voice low and urgent. A phone call. I set down my papers and moved silently to my bedroom door, opening it just enough to listen. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too focused on the collection to see what's happening. Monique's voice. I'm telling you, Marcus, this is going to work. She's 71. Just one more season, and my name will be forever associated with the brand. The Vogue piece is already shifting the narrative. After the Met Gala, when the reviews talk about my designs, when the orders come in for the pieces I created, we make the move. Silence. She was listening to whoever Marcus was. Then we let her rest, announce her retirement, get her out of the studio and into some emeritus role where she can't interfere. The board will back us, they already agreed. She built something incredible, but it's time for new blood. It's time for me. Another pause. Forever, Marcus. This brand will be mine forever. She should have had children if she wanted an heir she could control. Instead, she got me. I heard her laugh. Soft, confident, cruel. I closed my door without a sound and walked back to my bed. I sat down on the edge, my hands folded in my lap, and I smiled at my reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in 50 years, I felt truly alive. You have to understand something about power. Real power, the kind that builds empires and crushes enemies. It gets boring. When you've won every battle, when every room falls silent when you enter, when your name alone can make or break a career, the victories start to feel hollow. I'd spent 5 decades being untouchable, unchallenged, alone at the top because I'd eliminated or absorbed everyone who'd ever tried to rise. And now, finally, someone was foolish enough to try again. My own blood, the girl I'd raised, the niece I'd shaped and funded and lifted. She thought she was the hunter. She had no idea she'd just become prey. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. I sat in my bedroom planning, calculating, designing something far more intricate than any dress. 28 days until the Met Gala. 28 days to prepare my masterpiece. Not a fashion collection, a destruction. The work began that same night. 28 days until the Met Gala. 28 days to build a weapon out of silk and truth. I sent everyone home at 6 p.m. My entire team, 32 people who'd been working around the clock on the collection. I told them I needed time alone with the designs, that the final touches required my hand only. They knew better than to question me. By 7 p.m., the studio was empty. Just me, 71 dresses, and a plan that made my pulse quicken for the first time in years. I started with dress number 1, the gown I'd designed to represent 1955, the year I was born. Champagne silk with hand-embroidered magnolias, a nod to my grandmother's garden in Atlanta. Monique had added the final beading 2 days earlier. Her signature detail, tiny seed pearls along the neckline. Beautiful work. Flawless. I removed every single pearl. Then I re-sewed them a 1/4 inch off center, imperceptible to anyone else. But Monique would see it. She'd know someone had touched her work. She'd feel the wrongness of it. Dress number 12, representing 1967. The year I learned to sew. midnight blue velvet with a chapel train. I took my shears and cut the hem at a 5-degree diagonal, so subtle that photographs wouldn't catch it. But on Monique's body, if she wore it, she'd feel unbalanced with every step. I worked through the night, dress after dress, each one a small violation that would crawl under Monique's skin. Dress 23. I unpicked her signature embroidery from the interior label and restitched it upside down. Dress 37. I printed a small message on the interior lining, hidden near the waist where only the wearer would see it. She thinks she's ready. She's not. By sunrise, I'd altered 18 dresses. My fingers ached. My eyes burned. I'd never felt more alive. I went home, showered, changed, and returned to the studio at 9 a.m. as if nothing had happened. My team arrived. Monique arrived, carrying her usual oat milk latte and wearing one of my 2019 designs like she'd already inherited the crown. "Good morning, Aunt Evelyn. You look tired. Did you sleep well?" I smiled at her. I slept like someone with nothing to worry about. The work continued. During the day, we refined the collection as planned. Monique played her role perfectly, the dutiful collaborator, the grateful protégé. She gave interviews where she spoke about learning from the master and honoring a legacy. She posted behind-the-scenes photos on social media with captions like, "Blessed to walk this journey with a legend." And every night, after everyone left, I returned to my private war. I began collecting the recordings on day 5. I hired a private digital forensics specialist, a woman named Dr. Sarah Park, who'd worked for the FBI before going private. I didn't tell her why I needed the work done. I simply gave her access to 5 years of security footage from my studio, my penthouse, every space where Monique had ever spoken. "I need every conversation isolated and transcribed," I told her. "Every phone call, every private moment, everything. That's thousands of hours of footage, Miss Gibson. I'm aware. I'll pay triple your rate. I need it in 3 weeks." She delivered in 2. The files arrived on a secure hard drive, 1,200 audio clips, indexed by date and location. I spent 3 nights listening to them, alone in my office with noise-canceling headphones, while the city slept below me. I heard Monique on the phone with her friends, laughing about my old lady hands and how I moved like a museum piece. I heard her tell her publicist Marcus, "She's just a name now. The real talent is me. Everyone knows it, they're just too scared to say it out loud." I heard her coaching younger designers, "Wait until she dies. That's when the brand will finally evolve." I heard her at a dinner party, drunk on wine, telling a story. She actually thought I loved her, like I had a choice. You don't say no to Evelyn Gibson, you just wait her out. Each recording was a gift. Each sentence was ammunition. I selected 47 clips, the cruelest ones, the ones that would cut deepest. I had Dr. Park edit them into a single audio file, 15 minutes long, chronological, devastating. By day 18, the collection was nearly complete. Monique was glowing. The press coverage was building. Vogue had confirmed the cover. The Met Gala organizers had given us the prime 8 p.m. slot for the reveal. Everything was falling into place for her. She had no idea that every dress she'd touched was now a trap, that every beautiful gown contained a hidden insult, a deliberate flaw, a secret message. On day 21, I finished the final alteration. Dress 71. The pièce de résistance. The gown that was supposed to represent this year, 2026. The future. The one Monique was scheduled to wear for the finale walk. I had the interior lining custom printed, not with a small message this time, with screenshots, dozens of them. Text messages Monique had sent to her inner circle over the past 3 years. "Can't wait until the old bitch retires. She's holding the brand hostage with her ego. I'm going to erase everything she built and make it mine. Every cruel word, every dismissive joke, every betrayal, printed on ivory silk lining, positioned exactly where Monique would see them when she put the dress on. I stood alone in my studio at 2 a.m., holding that dress, imagining her face when she discovered what I'd done. Then I hung it carefully on the rack with the others, indistinguishable from the rest of the collection. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror of my penthouse bathroom. My reflection stared back, sharp and clear. I leaned close to the glass and whispered the words I'd been saving. "Come closer, darling. I'm going to put you on the biggest stage of your life. 7 days until the Met Gala. 7 days until the world watched me destroy the only person who'd ever dared to think she could replace me." I smiled at my reflection. Not a warm smile, not a kind smile. The smile of a queen who's just sharpened her crown. The Metropolitan Museum of Art. May 5th, 2026. The first Monday in May. The night the fashion world holds its breath. I arrived alone. The red carpet stretched before me like a runway to judgment, cameras flanking both sides, 500 photographers screaming my name. I wore a gown I'd designed that morning. Black silk, architectural, severe, no embellishment, no softness. A dress that said exactly what I needed it to say. I am not here to charm you. I am here to end something. The crowd was confused. Where was Monique? This was supposed to be our joint entrance, the symbolic moment where legend and protege walked together into history. Vogue had cleared the carpet. The live stream had 72 million viewers waiting for this exact moment. I walked alone, each step deliberate, my head high, 71 years of gravity in every movement. Inside the Great Hall, 2,000 guests filled the space. Everyone who mattered, every designer, every editor, every celebrity who'd ever worn my work. Anna Wintour, in the front row. Naomi Campbell 3 seats over, the CEO of LVMH, the director of the Costume Institute. All of them dressed in their finest, all of them waiting for the Evelyn Gibson finale they'd been promised. And there, in the front row, seat B7, sat Monique. She wore ivory, one of her own designs, safe and pretty. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone who thought she was about to inherit a kingdom. Our eyes met across the room. I saw her confusion. Her smile was uncertain, questioning. Where had I been? Why hadn't we walked together as planned? I didn't smile back. The lights dimmed. The music stopped. 2,000 people fell silent. I walked to the center of the runway, the long platform that stretched through the Great Hall. A single spotlight found me. Behind me, an 80-foot LED screen flickered to life. I held the microphone they'd given me. My hand was steady. "Good evening. I am Evelyn Gibson. For those who don't know me, you're in the wrong room." Polite laughter. Nervous energy. 50 years ago, I showed my first collection in a warehouse in Brooklyn with 17 people in attendance. Tonight, the world is watching. The journey between those two moments is called a legacy. And legacies matter. They matter because they tell the truth about who we are when no one is performing. When the cameras are off, when we think we're safe to show our real faces. I paused, let the silence build. This collection was announced as Evelyn and Monique. A collaboration, a passing of the torch, a beautiful story about mentorship and love and family. The screen behind me lit up, a photo, me and Monique at the press conference, holding hands, smiling. But I'm 71 years old. I've survived this industry by never lying to myself. So tonight, I'm going to tell you the truth. I pressed the remote in my palm. The screen changed. Audio began to play. Monique's voice, crystal clear through the museum speaker system. She's old. She moves like a museum piece. I give her 2 more seasons, max. The room gasped. 2,000 people drawing breath at once. Another clip. Monique laughing with friends. The real talent is me. Everyone knows it. They're just too scared to say it to her face. I watched Monique in the front row. Her face had gone white. She was gripping the armrests of her chair. The recordings continued. Clip after clip. 5 years of cruelty, ambition, and betrayal, edited into 3 minutes of devastating clarity. Can't wait until the old bitch retires. She's just a name now. I'm the future. Wait until she dies. That's when this brand will finally evolve. The final clip played. The phone call I'd overheard at 3 a.m., Monique's voice, cold and calculating. Just one more season, and my name will be forever associated with the brand. Then we let her rest. Forever. The audio stopped. Silence crashed down like a guillotine. Every eye in the room was on Monique. She tried to stand. Her legs wouldn't hold her. She sank back into her seat, trapped by 2,000 stares, by cameras broadcasting her humiliation to 72 million viewers worldwide. I let the moment breathe, let it expand until the air felt thick with shock. Then I spoke. My voice was ice. This collection is called Evelyn. Not Evelyn and Monique. Just Evelyn. Because that's all there has ever been. That's all there will ever be. The screen behind me changed again. Images of the dresses, the 71 gowns, but now close-up shots showing the alterations, the crooked hems, the upside-down signatures, the hidden messages printed on lining. Every dress my niece touched, I unmade. Every signature she added, I erased or ruined. Because this is my collection, my legacy, my name. And I will not share it with someone who spent 5 years waiting for me to die. Monique's face was streaming with tears now. Mascara running. Photographers were capturing every second of her destruction. There is no co-designer. There is no protege. There is no heir. There is only Evelyn Gibson. Yesterday, today, and after I'm gone, I looked directly at Monique. The spotlight found her, pinning her in place like a butterfly on a board. You wanted my light, darling. You wanted to stand in it, to steal it, to claim it as your own. I smiled, the coldest smile of my life. Now choke on it. The room erupted. Not in applause, in chaos. Voices overlapping, people standing, cameras flashing like lightning. Monique sat frozen in her seat, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything but endure the weight of every eye in the fashion world watching her annihilation. I turned and walked off the runway. The spotlight followed me, only me. Behind me, the 71 dresses began their procession, models wearing my work, my vision, my 50 years of excellence. Each gown perfect, untouched by Monique's hands, pure Evelyn Gibson. The last thing I heard before the music swelled was the sound of Monique sobbing in the front row. I didn't look back. Queens don't watch their enemies fall. They just keep walking. 1 year later, the New York Times ran a feature last Tuesday. Evelyn Gibson at 72. The designer who refused to fade. 12 pages. 7 photo spreads. They called me a legend, an icon, a force of nature who'd redefined what it meant to age in an industry obsessed with youth. They didn't mention Monique once. Not her name, not the scandal, not the Met Gala that broke the internet and became the most watched fashion moment in history. 72 million people saw her destruction that night. By morning, the number had climbed to 300 million. The recordings, the ruined dresses, my ice-cold declaration, it all went viral in a way that would have destroyed a lesser person. It destroyed Monique completely. She left New York 3 days after the gala. No goodbye, no statement, just gone. Her apartment in Tribeca sat empty for 2 months before someone finally cleared it out. Her publicist, Marcus, the one who'd helped plot my retirement, released a single sentence. Miss Parker is stepping away from public life to focus on personal matters. Personal matters, the phrase people use when they mean complete annihilation. I heard through connections that she tried Paris first, pitched herself to Chanel, to Dior. They wouldn't see her. The fashion world has an excellent memory for scandal and an even better instinct for self-preservation. No one wanted to be associated with the woman who'd tried to overthrow Evelyn Gibson. Then she tried Los Angeles, costume design for films. The studios passed. London, Milan, Tokyo, every door closed before she could knock. 6 months after the gala, someone spotted her in a small town in Oregon, working at a fabric store, minimum wage, anonymous. The photo made its way to me through one of my assistants, who thought I'd want to see it. I looked at it for exactly 5 seconds. Monique behind a counter, wearing a store uniform, no makeup, her hair pulled back, looking 20 years older than 39. Then I deleted it. She doesn't exist anymore, not in fashion, not in any world that matters. And I am still here, front row at every major show. Paris Fashion Week, Milan, London, New York. The same seat, the same spotlight. Photographers still scream my name. Designers still send flowers to my hotel room, begging for my approval. My Instagram has 14 million followers. Every post gets 1 million likes within an hour. The Evelyn Gibson brand is worth $2.3 billion. Highest valuation in its 50-year history. We opened flagships in Dubai and Singapore. We dressed 3 first ladies and every major actress under 40. The waiting list for my custom work is 18 months long. I won. Completely. Absolutely. Without question. So why do I stand here every morning in this 5,000 square foot penthouse overlooking Central Park and feel like I'm living in a museum? The silence is what gets you. When you've spent 50 years surrounded by people, assistants, seamstresses, photographers, journalists, all of them orbiting your gravity, wanting something, needing something, the quiet is like a physical presence. I fired half my staff after the gala. Not because they'd done anything wrong, because I couldn't stand the way they looked at me. That mixture of fear and awe, and something else. Pity, maybe. Like they'd watched me win a war but lose something they couldn't name. I still go to the studio every day, still design, still create. But the atelier feels different now, colder. The space where Monique used to work remains empty. I haven't hired anyone to replace her, haven't even moved her desk. Sometimes I catch myself looking at it, remembering when she was 7 years old, drawing dresses with crayons at my kitchen table, before ambition, before betrayal, when she looked at me like I was magic. I pour myself a drink and the memory disappears. Tonight, I'm alone in the penthouse. It's 11 p.m. on a Saturday. The city glitters below, 8 million people living their small lives. I've dismissed everyone, no assistants, no security, no one. I walk through the rooms, past walls covered with magazine covers bearing my face, awards in glass cases, photographs of me with presidents and queens and legends, 50 years of proof that I mattered, that I built something eternal. I stop in my bedroom. The lights are off except for one, a single spotlight I had installed above the mirror. It creates a circle of light in the darkness, like a stage. I stand in front of the mirror, 72 years old. My skin still smooth, my cheekbones still sharp, my eyes still fierce. The best surgeons money can buy, the best stylists, the best everything. I pick up the champagne glass from my nightstand, Veuve Clicquot, the expensive kind. I drink it alone most nights now. I raise the glass to my reflection. They thought they could inherit my crown. I say to the woman in the mirror. My voice echoes in the empty room. I showed them the only way to wear it. Alone. Forever. And unbearably beautiful. I take a sip. The champagne tastes like victory and ash. On my dresser sits an actual crown. White gold and diamonds. I commissioned it last month from Cartier. $60,000. I told them it was for a photo shoot. That was a lie. I pick it up, feel the weight of it. 3 pounds of metal and stones. I place it on my head. It's heavy, so heavy my neck aches immediately, but I don't take it off. I look at myself in the mirror. A 72-year-old black woman wearing a crown in an empty penthouse at midnight. A queen with no kingdom, a legend with no heir, a victor with no one left to defeat. The crown catches the light, brilliant, blinding, beautiful. And mine, only mine, forever. I stand there until my champagne goes flat and the city below begins to sleep. Then I take off the crown, set it carefully back on the dresser, and go to bed in a room so quiet I can hear my own heartbeat. I won. I'm still here. And I have never been more alone.